I'm Joanna Small, your public information officer for the Wheat Ridge Police Department. It's Friday, April 7th, and this is your WRPD Video Week in Review. Here's a summary of some of the most notable incidents your Wheat Ridge patrol officers responded to over this past week or so. On April 6th, officers were called to a convenience store in the 9900 block of West 44th Avenue when a juvenile attempted to steal alcohol. Her boyfriend arrived and tried to pay the clerk with 4 fraudulent $100 bills. A third juvenile male came to the store claiming to be the girl's father. The clerk hit an alarm, which then locked the doors to the store, and the 2 male suspects destroyed 2 glass doors inside that business. Officers arrested one of the males on criminal mischief charges. Also on April 6th, we were contacted by the manager of the Ulta Beauty on Youngfield about a theft at the Arvada location because the suspects were the same people who had previously taken merchandise from the Wheat Ridge store. That theft was substantial, totaling approximately $1,600. Both suspects were contacted and enough probable cause existed to arrest one for that Wheat Ridge theft. And again, on April 6th, Wheat Ridge patrol officers were called to the 6200 block of West 29th to assist the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in locating a suspect who had a warrant for sex assault on a child. WRPD assisted our neighboring agency in safely taking that man into custody. On April 5th, a suspect in an aggravated motor vehicle theft from the area was observed outside one of the Wheat Ridge motels with another person who officers knew to have a felony arrest warrant. Both fled from the parking lot when an officer attempted to contact those people. The motor vehicle theft suspect was apprehended, but the woman with the felony warrant did escape. Also on April 5th, a Wheat Ridge High School student who was walking from the school to Discovery Park told officers a man approached her, grabbed her arm, and attempted to take her. She was able to stomp on his foot and run to her friends who were waiting in the park. The suspect left the area. She described him as a white male about 5'8" with a thin build, wearing a black beanie and distinctive-looking black high-top Vans sneakers. She also told us he had a deep voice, short brown hair, and brown eyes. Officers immediately canvassed the area, and detectives are investigating the incident. It happened just before noon. If you believe you have any pertinent information about this incident, please reach out to our investigative team at the number that's listed there on your screen. On April 4th, officers were dispatched to the 3900 block of Wadsworth for an unwanted party call. 4 people were in an enclosed dumpster area, and the reporting party wanted them trespassed from the property. Officers found there were actually 5 people, 4 of whom had warrants for their arrest. Several of the people ran. All 4 with warrants were caught and faced various charges to include obstruction of a peace officer and unlawful possession of a controlled substance. The individual without the warrant was issued a trespass notice. Also on April 4th, officers were called for what was a verified alarm at the Smoker Friendly in the 3200 block of Youngfield. When they arrived, they found the door had been pried open and cigarettes and lottery tickets had been stolen from inside the business. The suspects had already fled the scene. At the time, the business was unable to provide any surveillance footage of the incident, but if that changes, we'll post images here on our social media pages. On April 3rd, officers were called to a disturbance at Subway in the 5300 block of West 38th and learned a woman had stripped off her clothes and was naked after trying to fight an employee there. When we arrived, she had put some of her clothes back on, and officers were able to engage her in a conversation. She ultimately faces disorderly conduct, indecent exposure, and criminal trespass charges. The business employee chose not to pursue assault charges. Also on April 3rd, officers were called to the La Quinta on Youngfield for reports that the group that calls themselves the Colorado Ped Patrol was engaging with a man they said had been soliciting a fake teenage girl online for sex. They were live streaming that encounter on their social media channels as well. Now, we do occasionally get dispatched to these types of calls, and it's protocol for officers to take all of the evidence from the Ped Patrol personnel, separate them from the person they're confronting, conduct our own interview with the potential suspect, then pass it along to detectives to determine if there is enough information to refer that case to the district attorney's office for possible charges. On April 2nd, a juvenile male was shooting an airsoft gun at other children in the community around the 4000 block of Upham Street. Some of the children did have visible injuries, although parents declined medical attention at the scene. The juvenile was issued a summons for what's called third-degree assault missiles. On April 1st, a woman dialed 911 to report that someone was drowning in a lake at West 44th Avenue and Van Gordon Street. We obviously take these calls extremely seriously, but what the woman said was a person turned out to actually be a duck. Numerous resources were allocated for the call, and the woman is now facing false reporting charges as a result. Also on April 1st, multiple 911 callers reported hearing multiple gunshots in the area of West 35th and Fenton. Officers located 4 spent shell casings for a .45 in the intersection. A neighborhood canvass was completed for video surveillance footage. No further information or suspect description is available at this time. There was also an incident from over the weekend. We did post about it as a standalone on our social media. Patrol officers were called to assist WRPD in locating a stolen vehicle. We found it almost immediately in a motel parking lot, and we're also able to apprehend the person associated with it. We often recover as many as one stolen vehicle every shift, but nabbing the suspect can be a different challenge. We were glad to be able to assist our neighboring agency. Now, in between your calls for service, our officers proactively patrolled areas in the city that we know to be higher in criminal activity and contacted people for lesser crimes like trespassing, which often lead to arrests for drugs, drug paraphernalia, and/or outstanding warrants. We also spent time on roadways where we know dangerous driving is a problem, issuing approximately 60 citations for traffic-related infractions. That's all for now. We'll see you next time. And remember, if you need us, we are always just minutes away.